There we go. We're good to go.
Okay. So how many, have you all had a chance to read through this learning experience? David, have you?
Yes.
And have you, Vanya, have you read through it yet?
Not recently, but yeah, I did it.
Earlier, good. Okay, how about you, Toyo?
I am started, but I don't finish reading it all.
Well, I'm going to, a lot of this, did you see what I sent you last night? I had earlier sent you the to-do list. And then last night I added to it the contextualization, irreducible minimums. And both of those are just a very clear outline of what we need to do to accomplish this. And a lot of it starts with just reading in the introduction and then what is culture. But what I would like to do then is move on down to, okay, now, how am I going to do this? Okay, Carl, I'm going to have your help here. How do I move down whenever I'm on this screen and I can't see that, the little line that, oh, there. Okay. See, all of the people are on top of the deal you slide for me. Because what I want to do is go to the section, of course it went too far, understanding your own culture. Oh, goodness.
Just click anywhere on the screen and then you can just scroll up. Or you can do the bar on the right side. You can see the little gray
Bar on
bar.
the right side is covered up by all the people.
Oh, then just move the people. You can just left click and move them. Or you can go to the upper right corner and you can change your view.
Okay, let me do that. Show grid. Oh, good. There, it changed the view. Okay. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to understanding your own culture. And I want us to look at this. I'm going to go to aspects of culture. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to assume that you have enough background in this, which I know you do because you've been doing this your whole lives. But let's just brainstorm about various aspects of culture that we could analyze. And then what we'll do is we'll go back and assign each one of you one topic that you will do your paper on that we will share the next time we meet together. So when Carlos and Ted and I were first starting about this, and we started thinking about different aspects of culture, it just goes on and on and on. So we wrote down a few things here, but which I want us to just talk about. When you first start thinking about yourself here, what are some aspects that are very related to the culture in which you grew up in, your own personal culture? So let's just brainstorm on that.
Are we gonna write these down, Nita? Or,
you don't need to,
no? Okay.
or you could. You don't have to. You don't have to turn that in, but from that we will each one choose one aspect of the culture that you will do some more extended research on and write a one-page paper.
I mean, one that comes to mind for me is, well, two, where food and holidays are really important.
Okay.
Spending time with family and the extended family is very important for us. Like celebrating every moment, you know, like birthdays, weddings, whatever. Just
Yeah.
have parties.
Good.
Yeah, also celebrating achievements, you know, or
I can say the artistic is very a lot of music, a lot of expression of the art.
Good.
Sport.
Language, clothing.
So two of you are married to someone from a different culture. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What are some
yes.
what are some things that you, whenever you first started dating, recognized as big differences?
I don't know how to say this, but something in with Heather and me is like for our culture, flexibility is something important. You can move things to accomplish, like make feel the people welcome or something like that. For Heather, I think her culture is more like plan execution. So that was one of the first difference we see in our marriage. So now I am learning a lot of planning execution, and she is learning a lot of flexibility. But in the beginning of marriage was something different.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, just
So
along those, I mean, that's interesting because even, I mean, though I'm not cross-culturally married, and I can certainly see how that could take place in between the two cultures. With Gwen and I see similar kinds of difference. You know, you have one that's much more task-oriented, one's much more relationally oriented, one more detail-oriented, the other one more big picture-oriented. And those may not be cultural differences. They're still differences that resemble cultural type things.
and on what you were saying, Toyo, sort of time would be a real aspect of what you were just saying. And I noticed that a whole lot with working with international students from India or from Africa or from Latin America. You say a time, and that isn't even relevant to them. Whereas we expect if you say 7 o'clock, it starts, you're there at 7 o'clock because that's when you start eating. So it's very different. Okay, good. What else?
Doing sports. I mean, like be involved in at least in one sport as one aspect of like I don't know if my culture or family like tradition.
Mhm. Like one part of our family, if the Cowboys are playing, you don't plan anything because the Cowboy game is gonna be what you're watching, period. No matter if it's Christmas Eve. And I mean, we had that happen this year at Christmas
Well,
Eve.
the good thing is right now
Same.
you're free. You can watch anything you like.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
sorry about that.
feeling very not just disappointed. I mean, mad people with one of my boys at least. Huh.
Another one is within marriage and how you deal with in-laws. When I was in China, it was very interesting to meet with. I would meet with a group of men weekly, and just the in-law issues, especially when they would have children or the wife was pregnant, when the mother-in-law would come, how long she would stay, where she would stay, who makes the decisions. Uh, it was really it was a challenge for them already, but man, I was just like going crazy in my brain when I lived on. I'd listen to them.
Hmm.
Mm, I think another difference between cultures is, for example, we talk this with Heather. For when I was in school and I had a punishment for bad behavior, I stay without recreo. How you say that?
Recess, without recess.
Recess
Uh,
reading. So for me, reading was like a punishment. Heather, when she had a good behavior and she followed all the works, she had the prize that is reading. So for she, reading is a prize. For me, was reading was like a punishment because you do something. So it's interesting that because the US culture read a lot, and I think the our Mexican culture almost don't read.
huh,
So
A
it's
book per year, probably.
really?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
heard, yeah, and I was probably in a newspaper, yeah, the most of the Mexicans read maybe 3 books per year. So that was very low.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, I can see my kids now, they read a lot and they read very fast and I really like that.
You punish them a lot or what?
I punish them a lot. Take it.
Yeah. And so I guess you didn't punish yourself by finishing the reading all the learning experience. That was nice of
Yeah.
you to give yourself a treat. You know,
That's
another one is maybe color. Colors have very distinct meanings, especially in China. Again, you know, whether it's red or black, and when you wear those colors, and with a wedding, there's a specific set of colors that will come out in the bride's dress.
hmm, that's a good one, and we didn't think of that one. Hmm. Okay, we could go on and on with this. And you might want to in your own mind, but so from this, what we're going to do is we're going to then try to categorize in this next section the different aspects, like sort of broader aspects. For example, one of the ones that we came up with was communication, which we didn't directly, we said language, so we sort of touched on that. But just looking at this list, these are the ones that Ted and Carlos and I, which was a multicultural experience as we were developing this, because Carlos's culture is definitely different from mine. And then Ted's is sort of a combination because he grew up in the north part of the US, which is a cultural difference from Texas in the first place. And then he's had all of this experience as living in the South in Latin America. So these are just some of the types of categories that could go under a broader category of communication: language, styles of communication, which we talked about being real direct or indirect, humor and jokes. When we first became acquainted with Tim, now wife of 20 years, said, we can't joke around with Koreans like we joke around in our family, because we, even in weddings and things, have lots of humor. And the youth minister that was marrying them, Timothy's youth minister, is a jokester. And so Timothy said very directly to Brent, you can't joke around like you usually do, because that would not be appropriate with all these Koreans in this audience. So humor and jokes are very different in different cultures. Greetings, methods of criticism, real directness or very beating around the bush. Ways to show respect and disrespect, gestures, use of slang. All of those would fit under one broader category of communication. So what we've asked you to do here is, by the end of this assignment, as a cohort, you should have created a categories and aspects of culture with 8 to 10 main topics, categories that you're going to then have different, you're going to list other more specific things under those categories. And when you get that done, then if you can just add it to this link, if you can put it into some kind of a categorical chart or something, and we give you some examples of that in this next learning module. So here are some different ways that you could do this. This is just one that we came up with, and honestly, we use this book, the culture map. I wrote this part, and I used this book, the culture map by Aaron Meyer, which has got some really good stuff in it, to sort of develop these types of cultural categories. And so there's different ways you can do it. You could even do it like with something like these cards if you wanted to, where you take a category like beliefs and you have different aspects of belief, your faith group, your worldview, justice issues. It seems like that's a big difference in different cultures. Freedom, clearly that's a big difference. If you are, because you're going to do a comparison with another culture later in the next part. So anyway, you can come up with your own categories, but this gives you quite a few examples that you could use to come up with your own categories. So what I think we should do is, I don't know if you need more time to think about this, or if one of these areas just really immediately you think, oh, that's one I would like to do a little more research on. Because what we've asked you to do is have each one of you choose one area of culture and then find at least 1 or 2 articles from the learning library. And in the first part of this, Ted went through very specifically how you use the library, the theological library that we have access to, because we felt like it was important that everybody really truly learn how to use that. And so if you would want to right now choose one aspect of this culture that you would like to further study. And I don't know, you might have thought about it already, or you might want to wait, but something might really jump out to you that would help you even in your marriage. Do you want to choose your topic right now?
When I read through the thing, I was thinking of getting an article on, because my target audience that for the comparison, I want it to be young professionals. So I was thinking the article or the research had to do with that. So finding something about a culture or aspects of culture of young professionals. But is that still?
Yeah, I think that would be a great
that
one.
could be done, like
Yeah.
for the research part, or no?
Yes, I think you could really do that, because that's what this book really is. It's breaking through the invisible boundaries of global business, and it would be very easy to find some good stuff. Aaron Meyer is the author of this, but anyway, it's very relevant, and you'll probably have to be more specific, like whenever if you're just doing like a 1-page paper on this. But
Right.
yeah, that'd be a real good one.
So Nita, would that include things like their availability, like if they're really busy, so they're only available either at lunch or in the evening, the kind of clothes you'd have to wear when you're interacting, the type of restaurant, if you're going to go out to eat, or
Yeah.
those kind of things?
Yes.
Okay.
What this book does is it has like 8 categories, and then it analyzes, okay, if you're in Russia, how do you communicate, especially if you are needing to do an evaluation? Are you direct? Do you have are you very gentle? Do you um, do you have negative feedback, or do you never have direct negative feedback? You know, it just goes through all those kind of things. So yes, it would be that would work for sure. Toyo, do you have an idea of what
I
you
have an
want?
idea.
Okay.
I was thinking in, I don't know how to say, matriarchy, the figure of the mother.
Oh,
And I was
matrix.
thinking,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I was thinking in that, because I think our culture, they have in a high place, the mother. And I think that's why the Catholicism here in Mexico is very different. It's more focused on Virgen de Guadalupe. And I think it's different another sides of the world, the Catholicism.
Mhm.
And but at the same time, it's interesting because in the way we spoke about the mother is always with the negative thing or negative. So, but at the same time, we live in a culture with the mother is important. I don't know if I can explain well.
That would be interesting.
So I was thinking in that when I was listening all the culture, and make a relationship with the gospel. Here, when you talk with you have a spiritual conversation with somebody with a background Catholic in Mexico, one of the topics you have to be careful is like, say like now the Virgin Mary is not a Guadalupana, and they can feel offended because they think we are offend their mother, spiritual mother, something like that. So we need to bring them to the scriptures and put in the right place what the Bible said about Mary, and she don't have any, how do you say, divine,
Status.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I was thinking in that.
I think that'll be an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see what kind of references and things you can find in regards to the library on the power of within the family, the authority structure, I guess, and the whole culture. That would be an interesting one.
Thinking well, I will talk about soccer.
Well, that would be honestly, that would be another good one, especially compared to the soccer status in America. It would be a real a variance for sure. Okay, Vanya, do you have any ideas yet?
Yeah, I'm thinking about have a, I don't know how to say, maybe a good approachment with my oldest niece who is teenager. And now she's living with me because her high school is closer to where I live. So this is also a good challenge, having her with me. And even I'm not her mom, I'm her aunt. But just to see what she's doing now that it's different than what I was doing when I was a teenager, you know, because I could see the music, even the way she sometimes that she reacts and like in different situations, or you know that the habits she has, beliefs. So maybe that would be like a good one.
Yeah. So yours is, you're thinking of music, but generational.
Yeah, like generation. Yes,
I think
okay.
that would be an interesting one. So, is it possible that you could do your research on these topics, and then you have to do some kind of a small paper or PowerPoint? It's not major at all, to share with the all three of us. I mean, your cohort members and Carl and me. Like, would it be possible to do that next week?
Yes, I mean, I don't think we really have a choice because we
Yeah,
can't like fall
get
behind.
through this. Okay, so that's our assignment for next week, and then let's move to this next.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we need to cover all the aspects?
No, I'll show you what's going to be for your personal map. Is this next section.
Okay.
So we'll go to right down here to our personal map, and then on that, you actually do for yourself. So these are two different things. You take this one area that you really focus in on and write a short presentation, a paper, or like 5 PowerPoint slides or something, to just be able to share in a, like maybe a 5 minutes presentation with our group on your particular area, and use the theological library to do that. Then we need to you need to take your whole area, like your own, you like choose 8 to 10 big topics, and make your own personal culture map. So you can see it on the screen here if you can read it, but like big topics might be religion, language, whatever the big topics are that you want to look into. And then under those, you just analyze yourself and you make a template of some sort. And it can be like this one we're looking at, where you just have we've got the template on the slide here. So you can develop a template of your own, and then just put, like on language, I speak Spanish mainly. I'm very indirect in the way I approach others. Whatever the different specific things for your own self that you might want to identify for your own personal culture map, and then you load it onto Pathright.
So, Anita, just for my own clarification, then, your culture map, I mean, you could be a very indirect communicator, and that could be more your personality style, but there are cultural elements too. I mean, I know, again, within China, it's a very indirect communicating culture.
Yes.
But I find that really some of my kids, and they may have picked that up from the Chinese culture, are very indirect in their communication style. So you're not doing personality traits, you're doing cultural traits that are generally true of your culture.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, so would you say in Mexico, are you indirect or direct in your communication patterns for the most part?
Indirect.
Okay. And see, more Americans are much more direct. Is your wife more direct than you are, David?
No, we're the opposite there.
I think that, yeah, I was gonna say, I think David is direct.
Although,
I'm
Ahorita
direct.
ahorita te contesto. In
yeah,
a
that's a
little,
good point, whether we put our own personal or the general cultures. I don't
Uh,
know. Carl, what
as
we ought
as
to
reading
do?
through the thing, I understood it as your personal culture, not necessarily like I'm not gonna do like Mexico's culture because
Okay, yeah, do
uh,
your own then.
the
Let's,
personal can have differences from like your countries or your cities or your I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, I think too, your lived experiences because, um, because we were in China for 25 years, when in America, when you say goodbye to somebody, you take them to the door, you say goodbye, and you close the door. Well, in China, that's incredibly rude. That means they had a terrible time. There's a tradition where you have to actually go out with them, and the further you go out and the longer you stay with them, the better the visit. And so they have a very specific term that they use for that. Well, we've now adopted that in our own home. So when you come into our home, we will go out to your car and we will stay there until you're gone and wave and wave. Well, that's not an American thing, but it's a Schumacher thing because of our time in China.
oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Um, okay, so let's say it's personal then. I should talk to Ted about that because um, I think that'll come up with everybody, won't it?
Yeah, but that would mean that David, Vanya, and Toya are going to all have different maps because they have different lived experiences.
Yeah, yeah, and you all might not even choose the same categories, honestly, because those categories could vary too. We've got some main ones there, but you might choose different ones. So anyway, I see, I know it's 10 o'clock right now. That is pretty much half of this project. And then the next half of it is on contextualization. And the pattern is very similar because first, do you know what contextualization is? I guess first I should say, so we're going to do your own culture, and then you're going to take us back to the culture part. There is another part of it because you do your own culture, and then you choose another culture and do the same thing for them. So you can lay down sort of a comparison. If you were choosing Mexican culture and United States culture, or Texan culture, since David, it's very localized even in countries. So you might even, I don't know the localizations in Mexico. Are there lots of differences between, like where you two live? There would be differences. So you can choose two cultures within your country if you want to. Do you have thoughts on that? Like Vanya, what do you think you'll do for the second culture?
Well, when I think about language, it's very different in my state than the South or North. Even the slangs are different. That in other like places would don't understand. And also, as state, we are named at the hospitality like place, that it's something that maybe not others have, but they have some other different, but thinking about this like more contextualization. Food as well is very different than other states. Yeah, it's something that just came to my mind.
Well, that's good. And so you can choose like for your second part, which like if we go back now to the next section.
David, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, from the also document you sent, Nita, like the other culture to compare,
Yeah.
it talks about it being for like a target audience.
Yes.
Like, so it's something that I think it's also related to the contextualization part, like an audience where we're gonna do like a, a project or a tool, something. So
yeah,
we should probably keep that in mind when selecting the culture to compare, that it'd be something that an audience where we're gonna do something.
yes, that's a very good point. So thank you. Did you notice that your all's pictures are on this learning experience?
Yeah, I did. I was surprised when I saw that. I'm like, oh well, I know those people.
I love this picture. And I thought, oh, I'll just use that. Because, okay, so we've had a whole bunch of cross-cultural conversations. We're so lucky, I've loved this. So just very quickly, so we will have done this officially. If you move to this next section, it says, what cross-cultural experiences have you had with people from other cultures? Do you just real quickly want to answer that? Like one or two people answer it. Mm.
Well, we talked a lot about, the wife being from another culture, but when I was a kid, I remember, kids here greet, with a handshake. I mean, kids greet adults maybe with a kiss or something, but we took a trip to Uruguay and I was like 12 years old and my brother was 10. And over there, kids, even that age, they also greet with a kiss on the cheek, you know. So when we got on the airport and the family that was picking us up, they had a daughter, around our age too. And, naturally she came up and said hi and gave a kiss. And I just like went back, like just moved away really fast. And of course, she got offended. And it was just like just a difference of culture in greeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it, what my boys at 10 would have done. Okay, good. You answered a funny misunderstanding. So you did the next one. Okay, one more on just a cultural experience you've had.
I can think in here when you go to other family and have dinner, you bring food and you leave the rest of the food in their house. But for the American culture, you bring your food, eat, and you pick your food with you. So could be kind of rude, like, oh, they are taking the food. So I have that in like the experience.
I did not.
Even when it's just me food, you deserve be more the Mexican side, like leave the food here.
Did you know that, Carl? Where'd Carl go? I didn't know that anyway. That's interesting. Okay. Anybody else want to share a funny story?
I'm remembering, well, when I went to Korea, I knew about this, but they chew the food with the open mouth, and they like make that noises. And it's unrespected in Mexico. And all the time, I remember my family saying, don't chew the food with your open mouth. It's gross, no? But when the Koreans came to Mexico City, and I was there for 2 years, I remember that I cook for them a Mexican food. And we were like I don't know, like 15 around the table. And that was the time that I could remember, oh, I forgot that they like chew the food and don't speak, but they like do this like noises, and they were all the time like for me it was, oh no, that's so gross. But it's just a culture, and that's the way they enjoy the food.
Mhm.
And my culture, it will be a shock, like, hey, close your mouth when you're like eating.
So I want to ask you then on this next question. So have you needed to change your personal behaviors to blend into the culture? So when you were with them, did you chomp around with your mouth open? No, I don't blame you. Okay. Have you found values within a different cultural group that you now particularly esteem? Like, especially in your cross-cultural marriages, have there been, like, for Toyo and David, have you really esteemed some values from from your American wives, or are there some things that you have really not valued and not wanted to have as practices in your family?
I'm
Well,
thinking.
one in Kelly's mom's house, like I enjoyed it because I love watching sports, but their culture was to eat around the TV, you know,
Yeah.
and so I mean I was only there, a few times, not like a whole year or anything, just visiting. So in that sense, it was, I enjoyed it because there's usually sports around, so you would eat, but it's not definitely. But for them at their home, that was the culture. That's what you would do. So there would be not a lot of talk or interaction. So then that was one of the things that
Yeah.
we did not want to adopt in ours.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I can see that. Um, so, were there some aspects of the culture that you felt like were very inconsistent with biblical principles?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's just more what you value, because for them it was a time to just decompress and relax, So I didn't see it like as a right or wrong
Okay.
issue, but just different value on that.
Okay. So we've probably covered enough of this conversation, but at the end it says make a list of behaviors or activities commonly practiced and determine whether they are an area of personal choice, like you just said on the TV thing, and freedom, or an area of required obedience for Christians. For example, alcohol consumption or watching inappropriate, like have any of you watched Games of Thrones? I never have watched it, but
No.
and I might not even ask you that, but I think it has a real immoral, from what I understand, it's really immoral. So anyway, okay, now I think that's pretty much the whole culture part of this learning experience. And then the next part is the contextualization part, but I think that's too much. Is it reasonable that you could like do the different things that we've talked about in these different learning experiences to this point before next week? I don't think it's reasonable to complete the whole thing probably, but is it reasonable to think you could complete up to this point of it, which is basically half of it?
So according to the document you sent us, Nita, it would
Yes.
be the cultural research assignment, the personal culture map, the target audience culture map, and the cross-cultural analysis.
Yes, it will be like 1 to 5 on this little outline I did. And then
Okay.
maybe next week we could do 6 to 9.
1 to 4, right?
Complete cross-cultural analysis. Path, right. Number 5, complete the cross-cultural analysis assignment, which is what we're doing right here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's good.
So I think it would be 1 to 5.
Oh yeah, 1 to 5 on the second page.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So Vanya, do you think that's reasonable that you could do that this before next week?
Yeah, so I was thinking if I can use some like photos that, or is that a good idea to explain, or do I need to have like some like written,
You can use PowerPoint, like you're talking about
like some
PowerPoint slides.
paragraph?
Yeah, you can
Okay.
use this. You can use PowerPoint slides, but just be sure you go to the library, to the theological library, to find something as your resource.
And you may not be able to find something. I think the idea is that you actually are just you're learning how to use it.
Mhm.
Your conclusion may be, especially like Toyo, your specific example, they may not have that, and that's okay. You could look at different facets. Do you know, how do you go to it and how do you do a search? That's what Ted is, I think, really after.
Yeah.
And so if you can't find anything and you can find it in another place, then I would say find it in the other place, like Google or whatever, or if you have specific book in mind or whatever. Again, it's always going to be for me, it's going to be the spirit of the law. And the spirit is, do you know how to access the library? And then do you know how to use the library? And if you can do that, but because you have culture is very different, right? And so it's not like we're talking about salvation or a specific Bible passage that you want to look at. So if you can't find that, that's okay. And so I would just say, you've gone through the process of trying to find it in the library. If you can't, then you go and find it in some other way.
And you'll have an opportunity on the next part too, because the assignment for contextualization is just the same, is to find a topic and do a mini presentation on that particular topic. So if it's reasonable that we can do this first half, basically this week, and then next week we can walk through the second half and then maybe have a week to do that. So we would be 1 week behind the January 31st, and it would be the February the 6th or whatever, 7th, whatever that date is for completing it. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, so
For
I
me.
mean, it's a fair amount of work here.
So
but-
real quick then, David, your target audience, it sounds like young professionals.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, and then Vanya, what is your target audience? Who are you, or is it going to be your
I
niece
was
that's living
like,
with you?
yeah, but general, like, or generational aspects of the Joe people now. I don't know how to say that.
In regards to the topic of music,
Yeah.
because you really have to narrow it if you're going to do just a short
Mhm.
presentation.
Toyo with Guadalupe. I mean, I didn't know if that was a general thing, and the mothers and
Yeah, Yeah, I was thinking in my audience is like in general,
Do you have a
like
specific
the
audience in mind that you could, whether it's in
uh,
your role or your evangelism? And
I was thinking when we share the gospel in college and they have a Catholic background and you talk about the Virgen Guadalupana, like I that was in my mind when I was thinking, but I don't know if it's exactly the audience or is more general.
well, that seems like it'd be, to me, that seems like a very good one. You know, because if you have a
Mm.
heavy, or
The audience could be Catholics.
Catholic, yeah.
Oh.
that's going to help you and help you talk to other SLM people and students on how you share with Catholics. And here are some cultural things you need to be aware of, and here's how you can contextualize the gospel.
Yeah, that would be good. So, okay, then I think we would have a plan then. Does that sound?
So then, Nita, on the sheet that the thing that you sent us,
Uh-huh.
how many of these bolded, where are we on the bolded? Cultural research assignment?
Yeah, number 1 through 5 is what they would have completed by next week. And then next week, we'll sort of have the same kind of brainstorming and chat on 6 through 9. And then they would have another week to get that done. So hopefully it would be completed by the first week of February.
It's 1 through 5 on the second page, Carl. on the
Okay, second page. Okay, now I see where you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Is that okay? So we'll divide it up for 2 weeks and
Yes.
okay. Well, we have a plan, and thank you all for participating there. That was kind of fun to me, at least. I learned some stuff.
No, this was good. Thank you.
All right.
Food, leave the food in the house.
I really truly did not know that. Well, my main cross-cultural things, like we had our group Sunday night and there was no food to worry about. I mean, those Indian students eat everything you put in front of them.
Yeah, I missed, I had to attend to something, but one of the things I valued from China that we have adopted is they eat at a round table when they go out, especially. And what it does is it just connects everybody really well. And so we have, if you come to our home, you'll eat at a round table. And so we squeeze 9 and 10, and we're always trying to squeeze more in. And so that's one of the things. And then, like I said, when you say goodbye to somebody, that you actually walk with them and those types of things. So there are a lot of very good things from the Chinese culture that we've adopted.
Do you have one of those round deals in the middle of your table that you turn around? So
we did, but we don't use that anymore. That works really well when you have
what do
lots and
you
lots of
think?
dishes. But the food wise, it's more of the American culture where we have one main dish, whereas in Chinese culture you'll have you could have 10 different dishes, and really so that's really helpful. But you have to learn how that's a skill. You have to learn how to make sure that, because it's going to just keep moving. If you miss the train and there was something there you wanted, it may not be coming back.
I know.
What do you think, like American, when the Chinese people walk with you, it's like we don't finish it, or
Yeah, no.
What is your?
No, you feel cared for, honestly. At least I did. You don't realize, there's things in your culture you just don't even realize until you're gone, and then you come back and you're like, wow, that doesn't really make sense that we do that. I mean, there was one time I remember, I was playing on the basketball team at the school I was at, and I went to one of the basketball players' homes, and he didn't speak English, and my Chinese wasn't very good, but he started describing a meal. And as he was describing the meal, it was going to be steak and salad and a baked potato. which in our culture, if you had somebody very special over, you would serve that, at least for me growing up. Well, as he did it, you would think that he was eating garbage. He goes, yeah, they gave you this big piece of meat and it was red inside and it was just terrible. And then he goes, and then they gave you vegetables, but they weren't cooked and it was terrible. And then they gave you this big potato and they didn't even take the skin off. And then they had all this butter and this other stuff on it. And the meal was terrible. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm so hungry right now based on what you just said. But for him, it was terrible. Everything about it was terrible.
That's interesting.
And then I remember his family taking me out to a meal, and it was crab and all sorts of, and I never grew up eating seafood. So I didn't know how to break the crab. I don't know how to eat the seafood right. So I'm swallowing the things I'm not supposed to be swallowing. I'm spitting out the things I'm supposed to be eating. And it was just, it was a nightmare. And then one last story is I was at his home eating, and his dad abruptly got up and he said these words, man man sure. And I go, man man sure. And I go, slowly, slowly eat. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm eating too fast. And I'm eating so fast that he's leaving the table because I've offended him. And then about 3 minutes later, the mom says the exact same thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a first impression. I've driven both parents away from the meal table. So when the evening went on, I finally said to my friend, I said, I am really sorry. I didn't realize I was eating so fast. And he goes, why? What do you mean eating fast? And I told him the expression. He goes, no, what that means is you just take your time and eat, but I need to go. So, Mom, you just eat slowly, take your time, don't worry about it, but I have something I have to attend to.
Yep, those are good examples. All right. Well, are we ready to part?
Okay. So, same time next week?
Okay.
Great.
Sounds
Thank you, Nita.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nita.